begin with Spiderverse, since the multiverse is predicated on the idea of choice. But here Miguel is acting like a kind of multiverse dictator, and apparently we cannot have choice. Therefore, Miles Morales has to conform to this larger system, but Miles wants to save his father, etc., etc. So there's a conflict between him and Miguel. I do agree with Anomaly Inc. that this is very contrived, does not really make sense with story. But to give Anomaly Inc. some credit, he does allow that perhaps the second part of this movie will perhaps rectify some of these errors or mistakes.
People are speculating that the sequel might fix some of this stuff, but as I said, they've already set the rules for breaking canon and collapsing the multiverse. They're just picking and choosing now when it applies because they didn't have the foresight to think about this ahead of time when they were making the first Spiderverse.
With what he says with the prequels, where he's really refusing to see that there's any kind of continuity issues or character issues that others bring to bear. Which ironically he admits to, but he doesn't acknowledge that he just did.
As Kiani Mundi said previously,
he is a political idealist, not a murderer.
And we learn that he is the leader of the separatist movement. Every time we see him, he's being civil. He offers Obi-Wan mercy at one point and shares his motivations with him.
Don't be so sure, my young Jedi. You forget that he was once my apprentice, just as you were once his. He knew all about the corruption in the Senate, but he would never have gone along with it if he had learned the truth as I have. You must join me, Obi-Wan. And together, we will destroy the Sith.
So Dooku doesn't want to fight the Jedi really at the end of Attack of the Clones. Okay, that's fine, but then at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, he's eager for a rematch and is actually very arrogant. He was very reluctant to fight the Jedi in the first place. Why did he change his mind? Like, what were the events or what were the incidents that made him much more vicious at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith? He doesn't sense any character assassination or even any inconsistencies. This is all the greater vision of George Lucas, and that's the usual card he's going to pull all the time, namely, he had an artistic vision with the prequels, but Lord and Miller are not. They're trying to jump on the MCU bandwagon and just make money.
So maybe this dumb decision wasn't all Sony's doing after all, but the irony behind this particular tweet is also nothing short of delicious. And it goes like this. Quote, Marvel has given us a lot of rope to hang ourselves with. Oops, silly me, my brain was still switched on. Let's try again. Quote, Marvel has given us a lot of rope to make MCU connections. It has been a very fruitful collaboration. Kevin's a big admirer, and just believes a rising tide lifts all boats.
And I think if you want to just say that Lord and Miller are artists, but not at the same scale of George Lucas, or Stan Lee, or Frank Herbert, or J.R.R. Tolkien. I think Lord and Miller are fine as artists, but again, they are mostly playing with other people's. They didn't make Miguel, they didn't make Spider-Man, they didn't make Peter Parker, they didn't make even Spider-Gwen, or whatever her name is. Their creativity level is not as strong. That's fine, however, and I will admit I am a bit of a defender of the sequel trilogy, but even if I wasn't, that's not relevant. Again, they are still artists in their own right. And Anomaly really, I think, misses what could be a deeper criticism, because he's really actively trying to deny that the MCU is successful, and that makes no sense at all, even under his own, quote, criticisms of Spider-Verse.
Because everything the MCU and fuckhead Feige touches turns to shit. It's just a damn shame you don't all fucking know it yet.
Everything burns.
And this film has already made great strides towards that. As I said, Spider-Verse was better left on its own. A rising tide lifts all ships, you say, Mr. Lord. True, but a sinking ship drags everyone down, ass clown. Now,
so Lord and Miller are stupid to join the MCU because the MCU is failing. Well, that is simply factually not correct. Multiverse of Madness made money. Wakanda Forever made money. In fact, at the very beginning of this review, Anomaly acknowledges that it's very successful and very popular. Making any sense at all. You're basically having it both ways. You're saying, well, they can't really be artists because they're pleasing and pandering the woke mob crowd and the feminists and the communists and blah, 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 and adding a lot of curse words in his Australian accent. Okay, that's fine. That's a fair criticism. Maybe they are, quote, woke pandering and just playing to the crowd. They're not real artists, at least at the same level of George Lucas. But you can't deny that George Lucas is very corporate. Definitely Star Wars as a creation, just even as a mythology, is a very commercial creation. It's just really false to say that Star Wars is a pure, not corporate entity and it got sucked in by Disney. That's just simply not a truthful recounting of what happened with the prequels. They were very corporate. You can still defend the prequels, but they are somewhat tainted by being corporate products.